Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. My name is Haley Deshane and I'm the events coordinator here at Eco Canada. Welcome to Exploring Diverse Careers in the Ocean Sector. Before we start, I would like to take a moment to recognize the traditional Indigenous lands where Eco Canada's office is based in Calgary. At Eco Canada, we're committed to working towards respectful acknowledgement, collaboration, and reconciliation with Indigenous peoples across Canada. This starts with acknowledging our honor and privilege to live and work within the Treaty 7 territory. Today we are presenting from the City of Calgary, home to the Métis Nation of Alberta Districts 5 and 6. We would also like to take this time to acknowledge the traditional territories and oral practices of the Niitsitapi, home of the Blackfoot Confederacy, which includes the Siksika, the Piikani, the Kainai First Nations, and the Tsuut'ina, the Goodstoney, which include Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. I also want to go over a few housekeeping guidelines for today's session to ensure that everyone can enjoy and participate in our session effectively. All participants are muted, so please check your audio settings to ensure that you can hear us properly. If you are experiencing any technical issues, please use the chat function on the left-hand side of your screen, and we can do our best to resolve it for you. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be available for your viewing in 24 hours. Any questions that you have about the presentation or today's topic can be submitted through the question box. We will have a dedicated time during the end of the presentation to answer any questions from the audience. And finally, we really want to know what you think about our webinars and how we can keep improving. You will be sent a short survey after the webinar ends. Please let us know what you think or if you have any comments or suggestions about the webinar. Eco Canada's vision is to build the world's leading environmental workforce. Eco Canada seeks to help environmental workers succeed at each step of their career journey. To do this, Eco Canada has developed programs tailored to individuals at different stages of their career. Eco Canada also provides opportunities for new workers to break into the environmental sector through wage funding for co-op students and recent post-secondary graduates. For those already employed as environmental workers, Eco Canada provides the Environmental Professional EP and Environmental Professional in Training EPT certifications and EPT students. Lastly, Eco Canada provides opportunities for those with vast experience as environmental workers to provide guidance and direction to Eco Canada's products and programs through advisory committees and emeritus memberships. Now I'll pass it on to our speaker, Krystyna Urbancic. She's the Blue Economy Project Manager here at Eco Canada.
Hi everybody, I'm Krystyna Urbancic and I'm just going to set up my slides here in just a moment. Okay, if this is the right one. Okay, you should all be seeing the title slide. So we're going to dive in. We're going to be talking today about navigating ocean careers with purpose. And as I said, I am Krystyna Urbancic, the Blue Economy Project Manager here at Eco Canada. So first and foremost, I'm going to start by sharing a little bit about my own career journey and the lessons that I learned along the way. And this will hopefully highlight why I'm the right person to be talking about this topic, and also lead into some more general information about what the workforce is looking like these days for the ocean sector, before I move on to end with some new initiatives that Eco Canada is launching in the ocean sector, including highlight our new entity, Ocean Alliance Canada, and sharing a little bit more about that and how you can get involved before opening it up for some question period. And as Haley said, I think you can put some questions in the specific question box, but there's a few times throughout this presentation where I will be posing questions to you guys, just to kind of prompt some discussion and all that sort of stuff. And so if you want, you can put those answers in the chat box. I love reading chats at the end of presentations that I give. So I really encourage participation, even though this is technically like a one-way webinar where I'm talking to you and you guys can't talk to me. So let's use that chat box. So let's start with who I am. I often describe myself as an ocean nerd. So I'm really interested in the ocean. I have a mega shell collection that I've carried with me across the country twice over 2 different moves that I've done. I'm a lifelong learner that has a billion interests. I'm interested in almost anything that I learn about. And I'm a people person at the end of the day. I really love people. I love working with people, working around people. Ironically, I work remotely, so that's not great, but it is definitely a key part of who I am. But if you wanted to put it into a cute statement about my job at Eco Canada and kind of what that means about with who I am, is that I call myself a multi-potentialite. I've got a unique blend with science, technology, and management. And my main goal is to help grow the blue economy, which typically is just like all ocean sector related things. So we're going to start today talking about my career. And I can't really do that without bringing up the marine biologist job. And yes, that is a picture of my sister and I at Marineland when we were kids. It's probably one of the early influences that convinced me to go into the ocean sector. So I like to put this picture in as like a early influence career pick. So I like to talk about the marine biologist job because it's kind of the default or what people sometimes see as the only entry point into the ocean sector. And though it definitely can lead to meaningful careers for people who pursue it, it also can prevent people from realizing just how wide the ocean sector is. And that even within marine biology roles, they're not as clear cut as they seem when you read the descriptions and look at the pictures. So the whole point around this slide is to start the conversation around the marine biologist. This is the base of my career. It started in marine biology, and so I like to start here because one of the big things I've learned as I've gone through my experiences and I've gone through my career is that we need better role models and better career stories. And so that's kind of why I'm sharing about my own journey first, because this is a fuller picture of the marine biologist job, in my opinion, because it doesn't always work out. I've been personally victimized by low job awareness in the ocean sector because I was setting myself up for a career that I thought was a requirement or a prerequisite to working in the ocean sector. And as I said, I've had to learn throughout my experiences to deprogram what I always viewed as the only way to get into this sector. And so, as I mentioned before, even within the field of marine biology, we have a siloed image of what those jobs look like. You look up marine biologists on Google, and it's like you have to be, first of all, a scuba diver, which is, not great if you live in Nova Scotia where it's very cold most of the time. And second of all, you have to love sea turtles and diving with sea turtles and coral reefs. And let me tell you, there's a lot more statistics involved in being a marine biologist than this Google Images demonstration is showing. But this is oftentimes how that role is presented. And so when I say it doesn't have a very clear cut, realistic, view in of the marine biologist, this is what I'm talking about. And so this is the programming of ocean careers typically. And so I call this is like where the conversation starts. It starts around like myth busting this linear career pathway that is really broadly defining what success in ocean sector jobs looks like for many people who view the marine biologist as the only way to get into the sector. So what myths were you told about your career? And this is where I would love for you to put it in the chat. Like, what were things that you were told? Because for me, I was told that I had to have a degree in marine biology. That was the big first pathway piece for me in my career. This is the pathway that I saw was the only way to do a really cool part of the really cool parts of marine biology, which was like diving with the sea turtles and saving the sharks. Doing all of that work required a degree in marine biology. But that wasn't just it. It had to then move, into a master's, which then, or a PhD, which then led me to like, okay, now maybe you can go and actually dive with the sea turtles and tag sharks. And really, when you look at this pathway, it can be really unmotivating for a few different reasons. Because for me, at least, it set really high expectations that weren't necessarily met in reality. When I started to learn really what marine biologists do, and again, that statistics comment, that really was like a slap in the face because I didn't know that until I hit university. But it can also put the idea that if we don't follow this path, we're failing in our ocean careers. And so for me, this path ended when I didn't I chose not to do a master's or a PhD. And what happened because of that is that my path became unlinear. And that's actually been my biggest strength in my career, is the fact that my path became unlinear. And so a key point for me was recognizing the programming that had set my expectations for a career in the ocean sector. Once you start to examine, these questions and you see that you were maybe only shown a small subset of career pathways, that's when the curtain is drawn back. I grew up in Ontario. I didn't know many people who worked in the ocean sector, other than the things I saw going on vacation, i.e. marine land. And because of this, I had the mindset that you needed to do marine biology and that was a prerequisite or a requirement to work in the ocean sector because I didn't really know any other way. And so I posed this question to you of what were your what were your all these questions I have on here, like what experiences did you have growing up? Who were your role models? And more importantly, were any of them women? That's a really big piece too. Like, did I see women growing up in ocean sector jobs and have that as an example of a place that I could go with my career? And so these are questions that I'd like you to mull over. And if you have any thoughts of them, especially around like what are requirements to work in your industry, throw them in the chat, because I recognize not everyone in this webinar is coming from the ocean sector, and some of you come from different sectors. So I'm really curious to know if this is the same. Like, what is the marine biologist for your industry? And how did that shape your decisions as you went throughout your career? So we flash forward to when I graduated from university and, this, what do I do now? Like, what's next? And all of these questions I have here, again, were part of that disruption of the linear career path, that decision to not do a master's, mostly because I didn't find it was something I could get into quite easily. That decision changed everything for me. It brought up all these questions of now I have to look for jobs. I realized internships are predominantly for returning students, which again, I only found out about after I graduated. And I had this big barrier of knowing all of these jobs that wanted 5 years of experience, and I couldn't even get 1 year of experience working under my belt. So a lot of this really scared me away and made me question whether going into the ocean sector career was the right path for me. And sometimes you don't know what's next, and that's okay. And so you go and you work at a gym, and you work kind of like a crappy job at a gym for a couple of years to take time and reflect, because we're always in such a rush and have this pressure of figuring out what you want to do. We get it at 17 and 18 when you go into university. What do you want to major in? Then we get it again when we're in our 20s and we graduate, and now we have to figure out what's next. Like, where do we go? Everything I was saying. And the fact that I took time after graduation allowed me to focus on figuring out not, how my life was going to work, but how life was going to work for me. I took some time to slow down and enjoy a job. And that also led to all these unexpected skills being developed at this kind of crappy gym job that I was working. I really learned how to work with people, and sometimes difficult people, because it was a commercial gym after all. So of course you're going to encounter some difficult people. Learned that skill. I learned how to persevere and work really hard, even when I was exhausted. This whole time I was working full time, I was also competing at a national level. And so I always had to pull it out when I was really tired, and like be on and be working with people when I was really tired. And ultimately, one of the biggest things is learning how to market myself, market my skills, market why somebody should work with me, and listen to me and hear my experience and hear my knowledge. And these are all valuable skills that I don't think in any other job I've worked since then I would have been able to learn at the pace that I needed to learn them in order to master them and carry them through to my job. So that's why it's actually a good thing to sometimes take that pause and go and do something and reflect and see if the direction you're moving in is the right direction. And for me, it still was. I still did want to work in the ocean sector. I wanted to keep going. I just recognized I was missing some skills and some experience that, again, like working at the gym built me some skills, but it wasn't specifically the ones that at the time employers were looking for. And so I did what most people do. I went back to school and I did a very, very specific advanced diploma at the Nova Scotia Community College in ocean technology, because I felt I had the background science, but I was missing this like application piece of knowledge to the industry. And I want to shout out that program because that program single-handedly every year helps marine biology graduates who are in the same position find technology-based careers in the ocean sector after they graduate. And it's a really, really great program. But from there, that's really where my non-linear path starts. I started working in manufacturing because I had learned all these technical skills and I wanted to bolster that with some experience. I shifted then into operations, working for my first ever nonprofit, which turns out I actually loved not working for nonprofits, before shifting again into what I'm currently doing, which is project management. And this has a really big focus on workforce development. And luckily, my nonlinear path has actually set me up really well for my current job because I know what it is to not know a pathway in your ocean career. Like many of the people out there that I talk to about this through my job, this is a really common experience. And I'm not even out of the woods yet because I still don't even know where I'm going to go from here. And that's okay because I can go wherever. And that's really the lesson from my career, that outcome of everything is it's okay to not know, and it's okay to go in a different direction. You don't have to tag sharks to work in the ocean sector, even though it's very, very cool to do that, because ocean jobs are multi-layered. They're not just technical or scientific, but they're also operational and relational. The skills that I learned along the way of my nonlinear path ended up being the things that have ultimately shaped the direction of my career. These are what I call my key differentiators. These are things that I didn't ask to learn or expect to learn, but ended up learning as a side part of my job that have now become things that set me apart when I'm applying to new jobs or I'm considering switching my career direction. So kind of the lesson I learned around these differentiators is that by staying adaptable, I was able to find more unexpected opportunities in areas of interest. When I switched into operations, the thing that really helped me switch into operations was that my internship job in manufacturing had taught me how to ship internationally. It had taught me how to do inventory management and the process of purchasing. And all of those things ended up being the basis of one of the main reasons why I ended up getting this operations job. And let me tell you, none of those things are things that I would typically have thought to put on my resume. I kind of threw them in last minute, but those are actually the pieces that make me an adaptable worker because I learned skills that I wasn't necessarily expected to learn. And I learned them well enough to take them into other areas of my career. And so in the ocean sector, it's not just your education, it's about your full skill set. What did you learn working that job when you were like, after you graduated? What did you learn when you went and did your customer service job? Those skill sets can help enhance the education and the technical skills that you have and create a more holistic view of where you fit in and what jobs you can do and what opportunities you have in your career path. And so again, I ask the crowd, and feel free to throw some answers in the chat. What are your differentiators? What are skills that have made you a unique or adaptable worker? And yeah, throw them in the chat because I'm interested to know. Mine were operations, team management, and communicating with people with different backgrounds. Those are all my differentiators. So what are yours? And so before I move on from my own story and we jump into more of the ocean careers, and now that you know me a little bit better and you know my career pathway, we're going to do this again now that I'm all grown and I've gone through the whole thing. So who am I? I'm a woman in STEM. I'm an early career ocean professional, so I'm still within the first 10 years of my career in the ocean sector. I'm considered an ECOP. I am a university and a college graduate on both sides of that situation. And I'm also a multi-potentialite. I have a non-linear career pathway and a lot of interests and a lot of intersections of my interests. And what I do is I take all those diverse experiences and I apply them to my job and I advocate for equity where I can. And I take every opportunity to learn a new skill because you never know when that's going to be a differentiator for you. And then I use all of those things and I use it to help people, in the ocean sector who have similar stories to mine, who have similar experiences, who are in the kind of beginning of their careers, or people who have completely different experiences, because then I can learn from them. And so that ultimately is who I am and what I do at Eco Canada. And so now we're going to shift gears into talking about my favorite topic, exploring the ocean careers and what the trends are that are upcoming. And because I think role models are very important, these are what some other roles in the ocean sector can look like. And some of these people have actually been role models for me, specifically, Julie Angus from Blue Ocean Robotics. I remember learning about her when I was doing my ocean technology diploma and looking up to her because she is a female CEO leader of this very dynamic, very evolving technological space. And I always looked up to her. So I wanted to highlight jobs can look very different than that picture I showed you at the very beginning of the marine biology. These are all ocean sector jobs. And these are all role model images that we should be showing youth. We should be showing, high schoolers before they go into university and decide what they want to do. And so I've highlighted the names of these companies because not only do they have, first of all, pictures of people doing jobs that you can find on Google, but they also have pictures of women in these jobs, which I think is really important for role modeling. So the generalist and the specialist, I've brought up this word multi-potentialite more than a few times in this, and it's partially because I only recently learned this and I identify with it really, really strongly, but also because it can be applied to specifically this topic. If you haven't seen Emily Wapnick's TED Talk on why some of us don't have one true calling, she talks all about the multi-potentialite, which is the idea that innovation can thrive at the intersection of multiple interests and skills. This is also something that we're seeing an evolution in with the way that employers are advertising jobs. There's a lot of small, medium enterprises in the ocean sector. I'm talking like predominant companies in Canada are small, medium, considered small, medium, which particularly need people who can have multiple hats, who can bridge different roles, be an HR manager and also a program manager and also, understand the technical complexities of ocean tech. Like we have those intersection jobs more and more being posted to the job market. And we're seeing this, like blended kind of role, which ultimately is great, but can also make it hard to, see where you fit in. But we're seeing this a lot in like the occupancy standards work that we do at Eco Canada, where we have this like professional and personal skills that are listed under every profile we develop, such as leadership, adaptability, communication, and cross-sector understanding. Those are ones that we're seeing across every job that we profile. And this is just really highlighting the fact that this is the new standard for when you graduate, which is really, really tough because you don't always have multiple skills when you graduate. You might just have these very siloed skills from your linear kind of education system you've done. And so it's really important to develop programs that can help encourage the growth of these skills, as you move through your education system, and then take every opportunity to become more general as you move through your career. And I can't talk about the evolution of the workforce without also talking about the way that AI is impacting the ocean sector. As AI tools are becoming embedded in the way that we do our research and our offshore operations and our aquaculture and marine logistics, like all of these things, we're also seeing that, again, that rise of these hybrid roles where you have to take not only the knowledge of the ocean sector, but apply this new technical innovation to that knowledge, and bridge that data science and marine expertise with digital tools. So, it's a good thing because it's opening up pathways for workers to transition into the sector by either, learning the AI skills and they have the ocean understanding, or vice versa. But it's also demanding that there's upskilling within. So we're getting more skilled workers within our sector who with people who decide that they want to upskill and learn more about AI and the implementation of AI. And it's also increasing the value of the soft skills, because as great as it is that we have these tools, we also need people who can apply those tools with human judgment. And so that soft skill of human judgment and ethics and creativity and kind of, efficiency and the application of these tools, that is becoming very important. And that's changing, again, the way that we look at roles in the ocean sector and the way that roles or career pathways are created. And so why I talk about all of this and kind of the basis of everything is the fact that the blue economy is growing. Ambition 2035 is something that Canada's Ocean Supercluster has set as a benchmark for Canada to grow to $220 billion in our blue economy by 2035. And their estimation is that we're going to have 20,000 new jobs by 2030, which means that we need people. We need a wide range of talent, including all of the support roles, which typically get forgotten about. Marketing and communications, technical sales, like even the administrative HR roles, all of those are also in demand as the blue economy is growing and new companies are starting or companies are accelerating to larger sizes. We need that support, and we need transitioning workers or people entering the ocean sector with the idea that they know they're going to have to upskill and reskill to keep up with the changes that are happening. So this is my petition. If you aren't already in the ocean sector, take a second and look at what's out there and see where your skills match up with, because there is opportunity here and we are definitely looking for people. And so the ocean is big enough for all of us. There is, at the end of the day, a space for everyone in the ocean sector. And I hope through everything I've just said, people realize, like people understand that that's a thing, because a lot of times that feeling of overwhelm and not really knowing where you're going to go next can stop people from pursuing ocean careers. And we're trying to overcome that. We're trying to overcome that barrier. So it is big enough for all of us, and we all have a chance to contribute our skills, our unique skills, and our unique expertise to the sector. But we also can't just focus on job growth and job awareness alone, because we also need to focus on the people and making sure that the sector is inclusive and equitable and ready to support diverse leaders. So I'm going to talk for a little bit about women in the ocean sector and why there's a whole project at Eco Canada around advancing women to ocean leadership. In my job experiences and throughout my career, I've had to do what I call unlearning. These are things that I've actively had to learn and overcome. And most of these are related to the fact that I am considered an underrepresented group in a systemically male-dominated field. And this is the same for most kind of like women in STEM-related jobs. This is a very similar kind of, some of these experiences are quite similar. So a lot of times I had to ignore some job descriptions, and that links into this like not applying unless I satisfied every requirement, because a lot of times they're wish lists. They're not necessarily mandatory. That 5 years of experience isn't mandatory. I didn't have much confidence in technical skills, and that's partially due to exposure. And I had to learn that confidence on the job. And that matters honestly more than the certifications that you have. Like I thought I needed certifications. Typically that is also something that women will believe, because you believe, or women typically believe, that they have to meet every single requirement that's listed on a job description in order to apply. And so I've had to, build up my confidence, understand that I don't need to have everything that's on that list, including the technical skills, and still apply anyways, which is a really, really hard thing to do when you're new to the sector or you're early in your career. And I probably wouldn't even have the job I have now if I hadn't learned how to do this, because to be perfectly honest, I didn't completely match this job description for the job that I have. And I would still say I can do this job really well. But it's that overcoming of realizing that it's okay that you don't is key to this. And then the last really big thing is learning, is being afraid to speak in these high level meetings. That was a big skill that I learned. And one of the only reasons I was able to learn that is because I worked with some amazing women who created opportunities for me to learn that skill. So this is actually one of my old supervisors at my last job who mentored me quite heavily throughout my experience there while I was working under operations. And not only her, but also the other women that I worked with helped my career in so many ways. I had a really great opportunity to work in a male-dominated industry in a female-dominated workplace. And that's a very rare situation. That doesn't always happen. And what it did was it provided me with lots of opportunity to grow into new skills in a very safe and inclusive space. I got really great mentorship and guidance from my direct superior, who had, kind of similar lived experience to guide me with. And they also created space for me to speak up in like really important conversations. And that builds your confidence, builds your skills so that you have the confidence to carry that forward into your next career move or your next job. But most importantly, it showed me this piece around advocating for your team and making sure that not only are the doors open for yourself, but that you keep opening those doors for everyone else as you move forward in your career. And so why it's so important to have women in leadership roles is because they take their lived experience and they can build equity into the leadership systems that they're in charge of. And so they can create this equitable policy change at a very executive level, which then trickles down and creates a demonstrated inclusive, safe workplace. And ultimately, once you as an organization have demonstrated that you are an inclusive and safe workplace, you will have access to a larger, more inclusive talent pool, because there are people who likely won't apply to jobs if they don't feel that it's an inclusive and safe workplace for them. And that's not just for women. That's also for LGBTQ plus community. It's also for racialized communities, indigenous communities, and all other really underrepresented groups. This all falls under the umbrella of equity. And in the ocean sector, women are kind of leading that charge. And I will say one last piece around equity in the ocean sector is that it's not just about the volume of women and having more women. It's about improving the diversity in the female leadership that we see, and the commitment from men who are in leadership, who are remaining in leadership for the foreseeable future, to shape inclusive workplaces for all and to create space for women to bring their lived experiences to the table and refine the policies in a way that can promote advancing women to leadership roles. And that's also why the Wage Project that is happening at Eco Canada is such an important project. And this is the project manager, her name is Pooja. She's the one who asked me to speak and give this webinar today. She's actually leading this project. And it's all about, again, like women reclaiming leadership in these kind of typically systemically male-dominated spaces. And it does that in a lot of different ways, mostly by having women share their own stories and share how they're taking their stories and implementing those learned experiences into the way that they lead. And another way that it's doing that is by working with companies to review their policies, processes, procedures for the companies, to refine them to make sure that they're equitable, delivering customized training within the companies. And all of this work is extremely important in revolutionizing the sector and the way that we systemically view equity in the sector. And so just a note here that Pooja is still looking for companies who want to be involved in this. So if you know any companies in the ocean, the agriculture, agri-food space who you think could benefit from this, or you work for somebody who you want to have like a training delivered or a mentorship developed in your organization, you can reach out to me or her at any point, and we can make sure you get to the right people. But this is a really great project, and I just wanted to highlight why it's so important that we're doing this work. I also want to highlight my own project, since I have this great platform to do so. I'm working on a project called Ocean Pathways 2.0, and it's all around careers in the ocean sector and supporting end-to-end career support for blue economy professionals. And we do that through a couple of ways, one of which is a designation program that we are building and expanding. We are also providing training and support, not only for good old regular like blue economy professionals, but also for underrepresented groups. and developing online learning resources and a platform for those tools and resources for people in remote communities to have access. And so that's kind of the big framework. But one that I'm going to share with you specifically is around this national collaboration ecosystem that we are building. This is something that I'm excited to talk to you about and expand on a little bit more with the time we have left, just because it is something that we are actually launching as of this webinar. So the website is live. The ability to engage with this initiative is live as of this webinar. So you're kind of the first people to hear about it, and our press release is next week. So you get like kind of an early bird access to learn more about what we're doing. So Ocean Alliance Canada is our new entity that we're building around creating this voice for the blue economy. This is a collaborative initiative similar to like a consortium that brings together partners from across the country so that we can align better on our efforts and share our knowledge and strengthen the foundations of the blue economy. And foundations are very important in order to have things that we need, like sustainable, resilient workforce, innovation, global competitiveness. All of that requires a strong foundation. And so this entity is working to convene national partners together so that we can do all of that collaboration and that sharing, bridge some gaps between the training and the policy to strengthen some actual real world impact on the ocean sector, and then take that space and make sure that we're making space for the underrepresented voices to have their contribute their thoughts on at the ground level, and have that representation within the ocean workforce and policy conversations, and then facilitate knowledge exchange. And create, to support this inclusive innovation capacity building workplace. And I know that's a lot of big words coming at you, but really what you just need to know is that we're working really hard to create a space that people can come to bring forward the things that have been successful for them, so that we can, either repeat or refine or build better policies around the way that Canada's blue economy exists. And so this is going to be led by a steering committee, which is a big part of why we're building this other entity outside of Eco-Canada, because we recognize that we're not the experts in all of these fields. We want the experts to be involved and come to the table to contribute. And so this is the rough structure of how the steering committee will be laid out. We want representation from industry, government, academia, workforce, Indigenous organizations, and any other groups that the steering committee eventually decides need to be at the table, involved in these conversations and leading the strategic direction of the organization. If you know somebody that you think would be really great in any one of these roles, please reach out to me, because we're going to be doing recruitment over the next month to fill some of these steering committee member spaces. And I would love to get recommendations of people that you see as leaders in the ocean sector that I might not know. As I said, we're not experts in everything. You can't be experts in everything. So I love to get feedback from the people that I'm working or that I'm presenting to about these types of things. So if you know anybody, please send me an email. I would love to connect with them and share more about what we're doing. The way that this is supported is through organizational membership. So organizations can become members and be involved in the discussion, nominating, and voting within the steering committee, discussion, and creating that kind of space again for networking and collaboration, and creating more visibility for themselves within the ocean sector that they are involved in some of these policy related discussions. But we also have individual members who bring their expertise to the table. And these aren't necessarily voting members per se, but they are someone who we're expecting to be really involved in the working groups. This is where the passion kind of comes in. Like if you're someone who's been working in an industry for a really long time and your organization doesn't necessarily want to join, you can join as an individual member and bring your own expertise and your own thoughts to the table and be involved in all of this. And so there's a little QR code on your screen that will bring you to our website. As I said, it's launched fresh today, so very exciting. The other thing that we have going on is we're going to be at a few events in the next couple of weeks, and we are also hosting our own in-person workshops in July and August, and then again in September, and hosting some virtual webinars and workshops as well. And those dates will be, kind of announced around 6 weeks out from the event. So keep an eye out on the ECO Canada LinkedIn and through our email newsletter about all of these events. And so, yeah, if you want to come and chat with us, we'll be at those 2 events with booths and we can tell you more about what we're doing. We also have a conference that is in September, where again, today is the day we're announcing it. And it's all around challenges and opportunities in the ocean sector. It's a 2-day workshop or a 2-day event where day 1 is workshops and one of our steering committee meetings that people are welcome to observe, as well as a cocktail hour. And then, as I said, day 2 is this opportunities and challenges in Canada's blue economy. We've got a bit of focus on the international collaboration, of course, workforce development, and the role of academia and industry in closing skills gaps. So this is a really exciting event. It's quite subsidized through our project for registration, and registration is now open. So I highly encourage people to go and register since we're expecting this event to kind of take off real quick. So get your registration in now. You can check it out on our website. Yeah, and so if you are interested in supporting what we're doing, as I said, I'm going to yell it into the void. Check out our website. You can also become a member. So our fees are all waived until January because we're covering the costs under this project, that my Oceans Pathways project. So you should definitely become a member just to at least check it out and keep track of all the things that we're developing. Come to our events, especially the one in September. We're also doing, some, as I said, different workshops that will be popping up throughout the summer. And you can always reach out for a meeting with me to learn more. As I said, I'm a people person, and so I do love to sit and talk with people about the ocean and about what we're trying to do. So these are all the different ways you can support Ocean Alliance Canada and the initiative that we're launching. And I look forward to hearing from some of you. And yeah, and so that is the end of my presentation. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who registered and attended. We did kind of have like a blowout number of registrants for this event. And so I just really, from the bottom of my heart, want to say thank you to you all for listening to me share my story. And I hope that you guys learned a thing or two about the ocean sector and careers in the ocean sector.
Thanks so much, Kristy. And thanks for everyone for coming. I have put the Oceans Alliance Canada website in the chat. Feel free to open that if you didn't get a chance to scan the QR code. Check out the website, check out the events, learn about become a member, register for the conference coming up in September. And I also put in Kristy's email. So copy that and send her an email if you want to connect, or if you have anyone in mind for the steering committee. She's excited to hear from you guys.
And also feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well, because I typically share everything that we have going on. Yeah, so it's a great resource.
Absolutely. We have a couple questions. Reminder, put your questions in the chat box, and we have a time now to go through them. So first one, thanks for the presentation. I'm curious, how did you discover your key differentiators? I've transitioned from marine biology to marketing and now exploring new opportunities, but I'm struggling to pinpoint my own differentiators. It feels like I've just sampled different fields without a clear through line.
Yeah, so actually, this is really great, and there's a lot of resources around this. So one thing that really helped me, ironically, it's kind of something, again, that's linked to the fact that I had a really great previous female mentor who I was able to ask what made them pick me when they hired me for the role that I was working, and finding out that it was something that I brought up at the very end of my interview and nothing that was on my resume, like this random skill, like international shipping, for example. Like that was how I figured out, oh, that's a differentiator. Also, I paid attention to the things about my job that were unique from other jobs. So again, I bring back like the communication piece. That was something that as I was, you know, learning this operations job, I kept getting told that it's more important to learn how to talk to the fishing industry. I was working in the fisheries kind of industry. It was more important to learn how to talk to fish harvesters than anything else, because that's the first point of everything. And that kept getting repeated. As I was learning that skill, I kept hearing my kind of supervisor saying that that was the most important thing. And that's kind of how I realized, okay, like now that I've learned this skill, this is an important skill. And I started marrying those in job descriptions I was looking for. What really the best thing to do is to, when you're looking at jobs, is skip over kind of all of the like about the company and everything and look at the required skills and start seeing the different language that they use and reprogramming it or rethinking about how your experiences could have led you to build that skill. And that's really how I start to break down if I can do a job. For the job that I'm doing now, I didn't have any real listed project management experience before I became a project manager, but I did, know that I had worked with a budget. I know that I had learned how to communicate with different stakeholders. I called it just like communication. They called it communicating with diverse stakeholders. I started going through and saying, do I have the skills and what experiences do I need to pull those skills from and highlight on my resumes? And that's kind of how I figured out my differentiators, is kind of through a lot of looking at job descriptions and looking at jobs and looking at my own experiences and seeing if I have in fact built that skill. Like, could I do that? Like, can I see myself doing it? Because if you can see yourself doing it, you've probably got that skill, or it's something you're willing to learn. And then once you've learned it, then you can be like, that's one of my differentiators. So yeah, I know it's long answer. Sorry.
No, thanks so much, Kristy. Another question. Could any candidate from other backgrounds other than ocean studies be easily successful in this area? What qualities and competencies should make a real difference in the success?
Yes, I will say absolutely. You know, Again, I'll come back to like, what's the difference between like if you're working on a river, for example, and up the river, further away from the ocean, because all rivers leave the ocean, up the river you have a freshwater biologist. And then further down the river, closer to the mouth where it's leading into the ocean, you have a marine biologist. What's the difference? They're doing the same things. They're both testing water quality. They're both building reports. They're both, collecting data, like doing all of this work. The only difference is this knowledge of the ocean sector and how you can apply that to a job. And I think, we have people, so the person who was asking about marketing, there are tons of opportunities for people who know how to market ocean technology. And the only difference between someone who's marketing any other product is knowing your product, is knowing the ocean sector. And so really it's just, you got to learn a little bit more about the ocean sector. There's not much of a difference, other than just learning these kind of core knowledge about the marine sector and then knowing how to apply that. So there is actually like endless opportunity to do that. If you can show that you definitely have all of the skills and you're just missing that knowledge piece, and you can, really say that you're gung ho to learn about those knowledge pieces, there's no reason that companies shouldn't hire you. And if they aren't, it's probably also somewhat linked to some issues around the way that hiring happens in the ocean sector. But there's micro credentials out there for sure around basics in the ocean sector and all that sort of stuff. And I will do a little plug here, and that's that this is actually an area that I'm extremely interested in our project, around the types of digital training that we're building and the types of workshops we're delivering are all around this little space of like, yeah, like what do you actually need to know about the ocean sector to work in it, as opposed to any other industry, right? And so, yeah, that is a big question, but there is lots of opportunity. Don't count yourself out. And really, it's just making sure that you emphasize that you're interested in learning about all of those things and you're willing to like take a micro credential to upskill so that you do have the knowledge base, or show other ways that you've really quickly learned something new, so that you can kind of show them you have the skills to learn. You just don't necessarily have the exact knowledge base, and that should be fine. Yeah.
Absolutely. We have a comment from someone here who says, I have 10 plus years of experience in hospitality, and oddly, there were a lot of transferable skills I never even considered.
Yes. Actually, so this is just on me for not showing the graph of how employment breaks down in Canada for the blue economy, but tourism is actually a very big marine-based tourism is a huge area, and that also includes the umbrella of like hospitality and tourism. Um, it is a huge economic driver. It's actually, as of right now, there's more people employed in Canada in the tourism sector in the marine air in this industry than there is in the fisheries industry, which is nuts. Like that's how much tourism there is. So in terms of transitioning areas, that's a big one for sure. If you have adapt like skills, but yeah, working with people is a really big one, and that's a in demand skill right now. People want people who know how to work with people. Yeah.
Absolutely. One question here. What do you think or know about starting my career in commercial diving? What do you know about career paths that start here?
Yeah, so if you actually send me a quick email, I can send you a what we call an occupational profile for a commercial diver. So that's actually a career that we've built a profile around where we've listed out the typical education experience that's required. We've listed out what skills you have, what a day in a life of that job looks like, and where to get going. And that's a really good resource to start directing your career. I personally am not a commercial diver. I actually didn't pass the diving certification because I just like couldn't do it. So I'm not necessarily an expert in that, but I can definitely lead you in the direction of people. And if you wanted to, I could connect you with somebody who actually has done that. I know a few commercial divers, so if you wanted, I can connect you with somebody, and you could ask them some questions. So send me an
That's
email.
awesome. Yeah, and reminder, Christy's email's in the chat. Definitely take advantage of that. We have another question. Do you have any tips for me to break the ice and get into the field?
This is a super big one. I was really nervous to do this until I did my ocean technology advanced diploma because I didn't feel that I like had the technical know-how to keep up with people and have these high-level conversations. Um, a really great way, depending on what level you're in, is to get involved in some of the different programs that are available. So depending on where you are, there's different like hubs. Sorry, my dog is barking at someone. There's different hubs, and for example, in Nova Scotia, we have the Pier and we have Cove. And both of those organizations regularly do connector events where you have industry in the room, or Cove directly works with universities to do like boot camps or programs and all that sort of stuff. So definitely take advantage of those. And you can also reach out to me because, as I said, we have our event in September, and and it's quite subsidized to come to that event. So if you register for it, that's a great space to meet people.
Absolutely. Another question, is there any specific platform to find ocean sector job openings?
Yes, there's quite a few resources for this. For myself, I'm finding more and more that companies are posting on LinkedIn. That's a new thing. Ocean sector companies haven't in the past used LinkedIn very often. That's a new one. They won't post on the LinkedIn job board. Most importantly, is following the companies because they'll post it in their like feed, but they won't necessarily add the job as an available job. That's how I found most of my jobs. Of course, the Eco Canada job board is how I found this job that I'm currently working at Eco Canada in the blue economy. There is blue economy based jobs in on the Eco Canada job board, but then also Students on Ice has a job board, and we actually do have a pamphlet that I could send you that has a list of different organizations that regularly post jobs or share other jobs. And of course, if you subscribe to our newsletter, our Ocean Alliance Canada newsletter, next week, 2 weeks from now, 2 weeks from now, 2 weeks from now, you'll be getting an email with our newsletter in your inbox. And at the bottom of that, it actually lists out a couple of different job boards that I regularly use when I'm trying to show people different ocean careers. So
For sure. Um, Another question. As a student, what types of experiences are unique to this period of being a student that I should aim to get?
It's a great question. I can tell you right now, I did a lot of research. I was really set on that linear career path that I talked about. I really thought that I needed to do research, and that was not the case. So I had a lot of experience doing all of those things. What really I would say, do a co-op if you can. Do a co-op in an upcoming field if you can. So people who I find tend to have a lot of success is people who do co-ops in aquaculture. It's kind of not a very glamorous space, but by doing that co-op, they learned, how to do field work. They learned how to do some hands-on technical skills. You graduate a year later, but I took 3 years off pretty much after I graduated because I didn't know what to do. So I would have easily taken that year just so that I could have a career set up or have a job lined up for right after university. So I always tell people to take co-ops if that's offered. And another area that's really helpful in experiences is to do, if you can, do like industry tours to see some of the jobs that are out there. Like it's really, really hard to know exactly what skills you're interested in or what areas you're interested in university. So just as much exposure as possible is a really great thing to do. And yeah, like that's kind of the big one. I think co-ops are really important. Work integrated learning, any micro credentials you can get. So like this is a big one. I was saying like all the adaptable skills. I wish that I had taken some sort of micro credential on like the basics of project management, like what that is, what that looks like, the basics of managing a budget, like a project budget, for example, and how to communicate in the workplace. Like those soft skills, if you leave university and you have your education and you've shown that you have some level of experience, like some summer work through maybe Eco Canada's wage subsidy program, I don't know, and you have then also micro credentials in this like kind of soft skill area, like you will be primed for the sector. But the problem is most people don't know that when they're a student. They just think that their degree will be enough. And like that's kind of the issue. And a lot of universities don't necessarily provide as much support for building these kind of softer skills throughout. So yeah, that would be my recommendation. If I could go back and redo what I did, I would do that. Or I would, yeah, no, that's what I would do. Yeah.
Thanks, Christy. Yeah, we have lots of questions here about micro credentials and things that are helpful. So I think that advice is really, really helpful, and definitely check those things out and take advantage of those opportunities while you're a student.
Yeah.
Um, we have a few minutes left. I got one more question. A
Great.
couple people are wondering about breaking into the marine sector, specifically in marine policy or environmental coordination. Do you have any sort of insights with that?
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, first I'll say something to the micro credentials. Micro credentials are becoming more widely recognized as something we call closing the skills gap. So, even for mid-career professionals, not even just early career, people who work mid-career who want to move up the ladder per se, move into this like kind of bigger space, they also sometimes need to do micro credentials so that they can have the skills they need to move up, and that's totally good. And that's definitely the trend that we're seeing in workforce development. And that's why, yeah, as I said, like programs like Eco Canada or Ocean Alliance Canada that build these micro credentials, or universities that build them, those are really, really important. And things that you should definitely explore because it takes like 2 hours of your day to do like a communications micro credential. And then you can say that you know how to do communications or you've done this micro credential. So, and they also show that you are interested in continuing learning. And that's a key piece too for retention and all that sort of stuff. For marine policy, this is a really tough area. There is not a ton of, I even to this day don't 100% understand really how policy works, how it's implemented, how they get refined, and and how the government as a whole interacts with the industry. And that's something that's really hard to learn. There is some great programs in Canada I will highlight the Dalhousie Marine Affairs program is a great kind of integrated program where you don't necessarily have to have a marine background to do this master's program. It's a course capstone project based master's program, and it is a lot of people who have graduated from that program end up also working in policy because it does give a really good overview. Um, I don't have much advice for it because it is a very hard field to figure out, but I will say that it is my top priority for my digital learning courses is to build a course around explaining marine policy in Canada and how it works, and then how those policies also interact on a global level with like the global policy. But I'm hiring an expert to do that for me since I'm not an expert. So I would say stay tuned because we're hoping to have that type of course released, later this summer, and that should give you an overview and also is linked to a micro credential in marine policy. So that would be a really good way for you to do some sort of micro credential and say to your name that you understand how this works and take that to the table when you're looking for opportunities in marine policy. So yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kristy, for answering all the questions and for your great presentation. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Please check out the Ocean Alliance Canada website. Get in contact with Kristy if you have any questions or want to connect. She's such a great resource, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for coming. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.